Okay, you can see why the U.S. might not want to show exactly what was happening to our troops in these battles. You have a lot of families back home that know their sons or daughters are in harm's way. And so you can kind of see them kind of holding back in that manner. But also, you're trying to keep morale up back home. And so the media is going to be controlled by the government. This is something that did not happen in Vietnam, for instance, okay, where there was a lot more press freedom, but not in World War II, okay? So, guys, 5.5 weeks on the island by themselves, they will survive. And eventually we'll take Guadacanal, and we will put our land-based bombers on that island, which starts to give us a better advantage, again, in the South Pacific. So Guadalcanal is indicative of a lot of the battles we're going to see throughout the Pacific. It's very brutal, okay? Now, as I promised before, we've got to finish this battle in North Africa, right? Remember it said finish later, okay? And just to kind of review quickly, we have a situation where the Americans are landing here, the British are pushing the Germans back here, and we're going to get this pincer movement where we're going to get the Germans, okay? And as you can see here, they're trapped. They try and fly out some of their best forces. Rommel escapes. What's Rommel's nickname?
Desert Fox.
The Desert Fox. He escapes. And but we capture 250,000 German soldiers and 16 generals. Guys, we won't capture 25,000 Japanese during the war. As we're going to learn, guys, the Japanese are fanatical. They would rather die at their own hand than be captured by the Americans. They have been brainwashed into thinking that if they are captured by the Americans, the Japanese will be tortured beyond anything they can fathom. In addition to that, it's much like the jihadists of today that believe that if they die in service of Allah, okay, that the afterlife will be wonderful. You've heard of the whole 72 virgins things, right? You guys have heard about that?
Yeah.
Mario, have you never heard that? You heard that? Okay. The Emperor of Japan is a god. He's a descendant of the sun god. They believe this. Okay? So they're fighting in service of the Emperor. So let me give you an example. On Iwo Jima, this island that we will take in 1945, there were over 20,000 Japanese on this island. We will capture roughly 200. The rest will either die by their own hand or by our hand. We have to go in and kill them. They won't surrender. So if you ask an American GI in 1945, one that might have the unfortunate experience of serving both in the European theater and the Pacific theater, who would you rather fight against? The Germans or the Japanese?
Germans.
Yeah. 250,000 surrendered. What are we going to do with all these guys? It's 1943. Anybody know what we do with these guys? Huh? Where?
Back in America.
Yeah, we're going to send a bunch of them back to the United States and build prisoner of war camps. Like in Concordia, Kansas, where these German POWs In the morning, they will march out of the prison camp, go work on the farms of Concordia, and then in the evening, march back in and get dinner. Now, this is an odd thing. Many of your ancestors in this room were German. And a lot of them, of your ancestors, farmed these lands out here. So if you can imagine this, you're farming outside of Concordia, you're German, first generation, you still speak German. And these German POWs are coming to work out on your farm. What about the Swedish farmer down the way? How's he feel about you and these German POWs working together? It's kind of a weird thing. Now, from what I've read about this, is that we had very few incidences with these German POWs. They were very, most of them were very obedient, okay, and did what they were supposed to do, okay. When the war was over, most of them went back to Germany to, try and find their families. Some actually stayed, okay. It's really kind of an interesting part of history. Arkansas, Colorado, Kansas, we all had these POW camps. Okay? Now, Alyssa, how did you know about that?
I read the story of my German soldiers when I was like in 8th grade.
Okay. All right, now that North Africa is taken out, we start to control the Mediterranean better, which is going to allow us to start moving north. Sicily, then Italy. Okay? So this is where the story goes now. Now, I do have to tell you this story. Okay? This right here is Kasseriane. It's in North Africa and Tunisia. Okay? The Americans are going to fight the French for about 2 weeks. Have I told you that? Okay, these colonial French, they'll surrender after about 2 weeks, all right? This is one of the problems that Eisenhower had. He was like, because these French commanders, after they surrendered, then they came to Eisenhower and they're like, hey, we want to join and fight with you guys. And these different commanders are coming to Eisenhower. Let me lead the French troops. We'll help you. And really what Eisenhower wants most is for the French to just go away. It's a headache for him. I mean, he just doesn't want to deal with them. Okay? We're going to fight some Italians in North Africa too. But this is where we're going to meet the Germans for the first time. Kasseriane Pass. Let me tell you something. It doesn't go well. We are going to get whooped. All right? Now, we're outgunned, we're outmanned, but we're also outcoached, if you will. Okay? Because the commander of the American First Army here is a guy named General Friedendahl. So while his troops are in Kasseriane, he's over here. Protected, safe. Okay? After we get our butts kicked, Eisenhower's going to fire Friedendahl. He's going to bring somebody else and put them in command of the U.S. First Army. And that individual is named General George S. Patton. Patton is going to whip our troops into shape. The British and the Americans will counterattack. And eventually we will drive the Germans back to this point, as this picture shows. Okay, this is the tip of Tunisia. The German line, last line here, and this is where we will capture the 250,000 Germans. You've got Monty, Eisenhower, and this is General Omar Bradley here. Okay. Now, I have this video, and it's awesome. It's 10 minutes. I'm not done teaching, but we're going to watch this video. All right? And I'm going to put it on the YouTube because I think YouTube will.
The first big matchup of Americans and Germans in World War II erupts in North Africa in early 1943. Untested American troops against the seasoned veterans of the Desert Fox, German tank commander Erwin Rommel. The Americans take a pounding at first. Then George Patton arrives. And with him, a new unstoppable fighting spirit. General George S. Patton. His bold attacks are legendary. See the war as he saw it, and ride along with his hard-fighting troops as they battle their way through World War II. On this 360-degree battlefield, Patton's enemies could be anywhere and everywhere. There's nowhere to run when the war is all around. Patton 360. Rommel's last stand. February 20th, 1943. Kasseriane Pass in Tunisia. The German 10th Panzer Division is closing in for the slaughter. 1 mile north, the target, green American troops in the floor of the pass. American forces have been in North Africa for 3 months, but this is their first big showdown with the warriors of the Third Reich. Allied leaders have decided that the American troops need more experience before taking on Hitler's main forces in Europe. But since landing in North Africa in November, they've only faced poorly trained French colonial units, not the Germans. Only 2,000 American troops guard the mouth of Kasseriane Pass, backed up by 4 Sherman tanks, 36 tank destroyers, and 18 artillery pieces. They're facing 8,000 German attackers with 100 tanks and 65 artillery pieces.
Until you control those passes, you're not going to be able to push the Germans and Italians either out of Tunisia or force a surrender.
William Harper is a 21-year-old member of the 601st Tank Destroyer Battalion. He hails from Dallas, Texas.
Came in with their tanks supported by the infantry. Infantry came right along with them. And they had us outnumbered, outgunned, everything else.
Fellow Texan Lawrence Marcus is a 25-year-old lieutenant.
The German tanks were coming over the hill, stopping and firing, and shells were popping all around us.
Commanding the German attackers is a master of armored warfare, the Desert Fox, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. Rommel's skill and fierceness are already legendary.
In all the actions that he led in North Africa, you can see the same themes of bold, aggressive action, leadership from the front, very much personally involved with the conduct of battle.
Rommel's key offensive weapon is the Mark IV Panzer. The Nazis' Mark IV tank is rolling death. Weight 25 tons. Off-road speed 12 miles per hour. Thickest armor 3 inches. Main gun 75 millimeters. As the tanks close in, German artillery and rocket launchers pound the American defenses.
It got pretty rough. Found out real quick that they were shooting real bullets at you.
The Americans are on the brink of collapse. The outnumbered Americans could use a tough battlefield commander like George Patton. But he's not in command at Kasseriane. He's back in Morocco, planning the upcoming invasion of Sicily. The American in charge is Major General Lloyd Friedendahl. He's considered an excellent trainer of soldiers, but he hasn't shown strong battlefield leadership.
He really set his force up for failure. Rather than having depth in that defense, he employed his forces on a very broad front, all sort of pushed toward the front.
Friedendahl is also nowhere near the front line. He's playing it safe. 60 miles away. Within minutes, the German panzers punch through the thin American defense. As the widely dispersed American soldiers in the valley floor give way, defenders a mile in the rear consider their options.
Is it better to stand still and pop off a few rounds and hit yourself and be out of the picture? Or is it better to retreat and come back and fight another day?
When they put the pressure up there and came through, everybody headed back.
Rommel's troops pushed the disheartened Americans back more than 50 miles.
It's a catastrophe. In terms of yardage lost, it's the greatest defeat of the American Army in World War II. There's a belief that, my God, can we fight these people? Are we good enough to fight the Germans?
19-year-old Tieferd Roebuck of Tampa, Florida, witnesses the aftermath.
As far as you could see were American tanks with charred bodies. They were bodies that were not charred, had been pulled out and were naked. The area after taking their clothes off from them. And this upset me emotionally. I openly cried. I'd never seen anything like this before.
Within a few days, British and American reinforcements slow the German advance. Then, Rommel decides to withdraw his forces back through the pass to shore up his eastern flank. Patton's son-in-law has been captured in the fighting, and after hearing the news, the general writes his wife, Beatrice, the show was very bad indeed. On March 4th, Theater Commander Dwight Eisenhower fires General Friedendahl and summons Patton. Patton is an old cavalryman and tank warfare innovator. He is also as aggressive as they come, and the difference between his leadership style and Lloyd Friedendahl's is instantly apparent.
How much more opposite can you get from Patton? I mean, he wants to be right up front, on the line, so he can make battle corrections immediately. He's got his thumb right on the pulse.
Friedendahl is basically hiding out in a cave. Patton comes to the front lines, meets with soldiers there. He improves mail delivery, he improves their food. He does the small things that are important to a soldier.
But Patton also sees that the demoralized troops need a kick in the pants. Military discipline is absent, and it's the backbone of successful armies.
He immediately starts handing out fines to soldiers who aren't wearing their leggings, who don't have neckties on when they're supposed to have neckties on, who aren't wearing their helmets. $15 fines right and left.
Lieutenant Lawrence Marcus is among a group of officers approached by Patton one day.
General Patton said, every man old enough will shave every day. Officers will wear ties in combat. And then he came up to about a foot in front of my face and said, and anyone wearing a wool knit cap without a steel helmet will be shot.
Within 10 days, Patton has Second Corps whipped into shape and on the attack, trying to squeeze Rommel into a deadly vice. The British 8th Army.
All right. Told you that was pretty good. No? Sorry. It's all mine. Okay. So you got to kind of see America's engagement there with the Germans and how bad it went that first time. And
Yes.
did they mention Patton? Did they mention Patton's nickname there? His nickname became Old Blood and Guts. Okay? His own troops feared him. His enemies feared him. Okay? And as we get ready to launch the invasion of Sicily, okay, you've got a situation here. Remember, who's the supreme Allied commander of expeditionary forces? Monty, the British guy. So he's getting to draw up the battle plans for Sicily. All right? Because it's going to be a joint American and British invasion. In fact, it's the largest amphibious invasion in history. Okay? 250,000 troops are gathered in preparation for this invasion. D-Day in June of 44, 176,000 troops. Okay? This is bigger than stuff like, Troy. Back in the Greek day. Now, the Royal Navy and the American Navy, but most of this is going to be carried out, the troop movements and so forth, is going to be the British Navy, the Royal Navy. Okay? Now, if you look at this map of Sicily, it's a topographical map. The darker the red, the higher the altitude. Okay? So it is a mountainous, hilly island. And so here is Mount Etna. Obviously, this kind of stands out. We basically figured that once we landed, that the Germans and Italians would begin to retreat towards Mount Etna and the high ground. Okay? And so the battle plan that was devised by Monty had the British 8th Army landing here. And all they had to do was go straight here to where we thought the Germans and Italians would retreat. Patton, on the other hand, and the U.S. First Army, was tasked with landing here, here, and here, and clearing all of Sicily, then going to the Etna line. Now, Patton wasn't too happy about this, because who was going to get there first? Monty would get there first, and guess what he would get? All the glory. Now, I don't think I told this class this, but General Patton is an egomaniac. This man believes in reincarnation. In fact, he believes that he was reincarnated for this moment in history to lead the Americans to victory. He's a World War I tank commander, as you saw. Tank innovator. He's risen through the ranks. And this is his moment to shine. And Monty is trying to take that away from him. And he's not happy. What we have here is a first-class testosterone contest going on. Or if you will excuse my French, a pissing contest between these two men. Now, ladies, I don't know if you're aware of this. And guys, I don't know if you did this when you were kids. But I remember when I was, 10, me and my friends could see who could pee the furthest. I know, it's silly. As is this thing between Patton and Monty. They both have the same goal of winning the war and defeating the Germans. No. But this testosterone contest is going to pay dividends because Patton is like, hey, when we hit the beaches, we go through the enemy, we kill the enemy, and we're going to beat Monty to the Etna line. And guess what? He does. And he's there waiting for Monty when he shows up. And he's like, what took you so long? Yeah. And then once the Americans and British show up here, basically the Germans are going to pull back. And the Italians are going to do what the French did. And they're going to drop out of this war. Okay? Now, because the Italians drop out of the war, does that mean that Germany's just going to leave Italy and abandon it and let the Italians be themselves again? No. Because if the Germans abandon Italy, the Allies are going to be able to march right up into Germany. Okay? No. He's going to keep 23 divisions in Italy. And it will take us from the time we land here to the time we reach Rome a full year. The fighting in Italy is amongst the worst of the war. These 23 German divisions are well equipped with artillery and tanks, but mostly it's that artillery. Because those 88 millimeter shells, as you're going to see in the next video, cause a heck of a lot of devastation and human life. They're about this round, okay, and they're about that long. And when they blow up, they cause a lot of damage. And we're going to see that take place here, okay? There's a video. Now I should have about 7 minutes left. Okay, this is Mussolini. Mussolini's going to be forced to resign. Eventually he will be killed in the streets of Italy. He will be shot in the head and drugged through the streets behind a vehicle and hung upside down in a town square where people can pay their last respects by, spitting on him or kicking him or what have you. You can see somebody is hanging next to him. That is his mistress. Il Duce is gone. Now, what this reminds me of in a modern sense is the killing of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, which you can YouTube that video. He was killed by his own people in the streets, and that's on YouTube. Okay. This I don't think is on YouTube. Okay. All right, so Italy. Let me just show you, okay? Just want to show you this map. Italy is very mountainous and hilly. Wherever we land, the Germans are going to control the high ground. Okay? And they're going to be able to use that artillery against us. This video I'm going to show you, which does that say disc 1? I'm going disc 3. Right there. Disc 1, episode 3, 32 minutes. And I'm ready. Episode 3, 32 minutes.
This program contains rare films of a much and in now is our man getting soft. Some are not